So I decided enough is not enough. I don't like the way the truck sits, and the rear end needs to come down a couple of inches. The only way to do that is to perform major surgery, meaning I've got to notch the frame, which is just about the easier part. And in order to notch the frame, I've got to cut and remove tabs that are welded for the shocks. I've got to cut and remove some or both of the tabs I welded for the rear end, and remake all of that stuff and put it all back together. So let me get the truck camera set up and I'll show you what's going on. Okay, so I want the rear end to sit about 2 inches lower, and although this is a independent rear, there's a lot of adjustability. I do need to consider more of the driveline angles and the half shafts. I would like, I believe the way they're set up now, oh, you can see it hangs. There's about that much downward angle on them when the differential is in place and the rear is actually up higher in the wheel well the way it's supposed to be. So what I'd like to do is even raise the differential up about 2 inches, and you can see, maybe you can't, but there is plenty of room up here. Probably about 5 inches of room above the differential that I can raise it before I even get to the bottom of the floor. But that would mean I have to cut and remake this pinion angle, or I should say pinion support, and I'd also have to cut at least one of these out completely and notch the frame, probably raise the frame up all the way to just about underneath the bottom of the bed, reinforce it all, put in a C-notch here so that the half shaft has more room, and then also cut these off and probably make them higher just below the bed floor as well, so that I have the proper amount of travel on the shock. So this is not going to be an easy project. I definitely don't want to cut more than I need to, because you can see here all of the additional dog leg support or dog bone supports that would also be affected, and that may possibly mean I need to remove the gas tank, and in order to remove the gas tank I have to remove the bumper, all of the gas lines, and if I do that I may also need to move the filter, which is currently right behind the pinion, and maybe move it in line here with the somewhere else on the hard line so that I can get to it easier if I need to replace it. So let me figure out what I'm going to do and get to cutting. well, in order to get this truck down the way I wanted to, I had to notch the frame, and also the differential would have been lower than the axle. So what I then decided to do is to notch the frame again here so that I could bring the entire bat wing and differential up 2 inches in order to again bring the differential up higher off the ground. So that meant notching in 2 sections, making all of the plates to box in the frame, reinforce the frame around here, and then also to cut an additional reinforcement, which I will weld in place on top of here, box it in on top and on the back side, do some rosette welds in a couple of places, weld all the way around the top and the bottom, and I think this thing will be at least as strong as it was originally, maybe even stronger. That meant originally all of the mounts that I had for the bat wing and the rear end had to be cut off and removed, and then remade. And all of these things, much like most everyone else who does this kind of work, you have to make a template in order to know how to cut the part for the brackets and the mounts. All of these templates was actually, this reinforcing plate was cut out of a template that I made after mocking up everything, seeing how much higher I can come up above the frame before the bed of the floor would hit it, and then the tabs that I cut off I made new. I will be making new tabs for this to bolt into here, holding this up against the frame. Most of the stuff use just cardstock, a thin cardboard, in order to make the templates to cut out the mounts. And we'll get started cutting out the mounts. As you can see, most of this stuff is already done, ready for these final mounts that I can put the bat wing and differential in place, drill the holes through here, and once these are mounted on here, then I will slip in the other reinforcing plate back behind and up against the frame rail, and then weld all of it all the way around the perimeter of that. So let me get to cutting. I'll show you what I'm doing. So here's some 3/16 stock that I had from when I was boxing in the frame. Fortunately, I had a lot left over, so now I have enough to make all of these tabs. These are a couple of the original tabs that were on the frame rail, and you can see that the bat wing sat underneath the frame rail, and this time I notched out the frame so that I could raise up the bat wing 2 inches, which meant remaking new mounts. Now this mount will go underneath, or I should say it's actually going to go inside of the frame. That way, again, the rear end differential is 2 inches up higher off the ground. Ultimately, what I wanted to do is just to lower the truck 2 inches in the rear, but at the same time, I realized that the driveline angles were not going to be optimal, so this gave me room, the ability to bring that up, fix some of the driveline angles, and to also hopefully be able to run my exhaust underneath. So this is basically what I'm doing. For anyone who's not done this, everyone else who has, I guess this is a little bit remedial, but you know, everyone does things a little bit differently. But again, I made my templates, I put it on my stock here, draw it out and cut it out. It's easy enough to cut out with the 4.5 inch wheel, and once I get them all cut out, I'll get them welded into place.
going to end the video here. It's getting too long. Next video I'll come back, I'll finish up the frame, I'll reinforce it, weld in the boxing plates, get everything back together, and hopefully even get the thing back on the ground. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next one coming up.